Hello and welcome to this review for The Richest Man in Babylon. This was recommended to me by a friend. I have those. He was like, if you want to know a little bit more about like finances and growing wealth and things like that, he recommended this book. So I went out, I bought it. It's not very thick book. I went through this in like a night. I bought it during the day, so I reading it the evening. I was done by like not like through the night, but like I finished it by the next morning it was already done. What is The Richest Man of Babylon about? It is about like a group of people who are trying to make money, and they go to this guy who's very rich in Babylon. It's like very olden days. They ask him for advice, and the book is mostly him giving them advice and sharing stories and things like that. And there's other groups. And in general, I like that. That's kind of cool that it isn't a very dry book where they give you information. They give it through stories, and there's a bunch of different stories. It's not exactly it's not like a story. It's not like, it's a movie or not a movie. So it's like this long story. No, it's not like that. It's a series of small stories that give you a point at the end. So there's not like consistent character building here. But it's fine. Like, when there are self-help books, this is kind of the format I enjoy the most. So this works for me quite well. So let's get to the good stuff about the book. Firstly, I did mention that uses stories. I thought that was nice. It's easy to understand. It's quite entertaining. It's not very, like some fitness books are like run more. And you're like, oh, all right, sure. Eat less. You're like, got it. But so this one does it very nicely, where there's a little bit of characters and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. It has a very useful point quite early in the book, which it gives you from the start, which I really liked. It's one of the few very detailed points where it's like, you should spend this much, you should save this much, and you're like, all right, that's very good. Like, you're giving me exact numbers. I like that a lot. And the book also is kind of humanist in a way. Some books I've read where they're very pessimistic. In this book, like, it tells you how to make money, or like advises you, or whatever you want to call it, but also tells you to enjoy life and spend on your family and not be miserly. Like, it always tells you should try to grow wealth, but not at the cost of never spending anything, and like, living on bread and water and having your kids like have nothing. Like, it tells you spend money that you think is worth it, and spend money to make people happy, but here's how you grow the money that you don't spend, which I like. That was very nice. It's not long. As you can see, it's quite a short book. So you can get, how many pages? It's like, I think it's like 200 pages, but the pages tend to be quite like small. It's like the paper is small. I had a choice between the hardcover and the paperback. I took the paperback. I wish I had taken the hardcover. It would have been bigger. That was my mistake. Some people advised me badly. Shouldn't have listened to them. But yeah, I got the book, and it's small. You can like get through this in, I was gonna say train, or more like a plane ride, not a train ride. But you can get through this quite quick. Last thing I want to say is that I've seen a lot of these self-help books that tend to be like, you are a wolf, and then the book has this theme of you're a wolf throughout, and I don't like it, or something like, or be like water, and you're like, I don't know, I have diarrhea. Why do I need to be like water? So this one's it doesn't do that. It's very clear with the way it doesn't have that theme. So I enjoyed it. Now, there is some bad. I'm not going to go all in like 100%. Some of the bad is that when it comes to information, like the actual things you're going to benefit from this book, it's scant. There's not much. Like, there's a little bit of useful info. Like I mentioned, there's one good point. I kind of knew it. I've heard it even as a joke in an episode of Friends, but not. I don't say it as negative, but like I've heard it before. Like, that's how common it is. But it's not very specific. Like, for example, it tells you make good investments. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, what is a good investment? Or have your money work for you? And you're like, explain? You're like, what? And that's a little bit of a problem, right? Which is that it's just not much detail in it. It's quite vague. And then you have to remember that this book was written in 1926. 1926, I mean, at the time of this video, is 99 years ago. So this is a very old book. This is very old in terms of like the information you're getting in terms of self-help, because finances change generation to generation. 50 years ago, the way the world works, financial is very different. So the stuff here is vague, and a lot of it is vague, and it's not like stuff that would apply to you very often. And some of the points are also very, like, we kind of know, like one point, I swear to God, it's one point in this book of how to be rich is increase thy earning. And you're like, yes, that's true. I was going for that. So things like that, where it's nice, but if you're like, 16 and you haven't worked and you're getting your first job and you're thinking, how do I maximize? This is kind of a good book. But if you're mid-30s, oh crap, like me, the info here is kind of like, I know it. I've been through life enough to know almost everything that this book has, and it's all kind of redundant. And then you go back because 100 years ago, this level of knowledge wasn't considered as common. And that's kind of the main issue of the book. It's not that it's a bad book, it's a good book. It's actually very interesting. But it is not suitable if you care about money, you tend to know something about money, which is why this book is not ideal. This book is a good gift for someone who's suddenly making money but doesn't know what to do with it. You give them this book. This book is good for people who are younger, who are like, like maybe when my son's 15, I give him this book. I'm like, hey, think about it, keep it. He might learn from it. But if you care about money, if you've been thinking a lot about investing and making more money, this is not the book for you because you already know everything's inside. So it's a solid book. I want to summarize it. Is this book worth reading? Yes, with caveats, which is that you shouldn't know anything about money. If you know about money, it's not really worth your time, but it's still an interesting book because it's well written and it's fun to read and it's very short, so you don't lose anything. So I recommend reading it just to read it, just because it's cool, it's nice, it's light, it won't cost you much, it's a good book, well written. So yeah, I guess in the end, I would have to say Richest Man in Babylon is worth your time, on a discount probably, but it is worth your time to read. If you like this video, let me know, comment, subscribe, share it, whatever. Thanks for tuning in.